1655, House Bill 1637, House Bill 1658, House Bill 1703, 1800, 2018, 2112, 2124, 2303, to that special committee on energy. And I know there's going to be some more on that particular, that'll be assigned to that particular subcommittee. And that one. File for the day will be House Bill 1552, which is my bill. We're going to put that till next Tuesday. 1542. I think that is it. All right, Delegate O'Bannon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman.
House Bill 1749.
Thank you, sir. This bill is here today as a result of some conversations that I had with Bob Bradshaw, the independent insurance agents in Virginia. I think the idea here was that this was with some transparency and perhaps codification of current practice. I'm going to ask Bob just to speak for a minute or two, and then I will have a question for you.
Bob.
Mr. Chairman, Bob Bradshaw with the Independent Insurance Agents of Virginia, and I would say that it's a very different environment today than when we first met with Delegate O'Bannon on this bill. We want to thank the health plans for giving our concerns their serious attention, but given that none of us have any idea what the health insurance market is, and that's different than the health care market, it's going to look like in the next couple of months. We see no option but to carry the bill over for the year. But let me just say that the value and counsel of a health insurance agent is going to become pretty apparent pretty soon for an awful lot of individuals and small businesses. Thank you so much.
So I have to say I think this committee is going to be incredibly important going forward. Look at what's going on up the road. So I would be appreciative of a recommendation to table.
We appreciate that, Delegate O'Bannon. Do I have a motion to second to table Delegate O'Bannon's bill?
Thank you all.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion, that bill is tabled. Delegate Wright.
Afternoon, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. I have this today, House Bill 1532, and I'll draw your attention to the section, line number 39. The assessment increases from 1 to 1.4%. And also, in the section B, on line 7 to line 46, the percent of the monies going back to the localities and the fire departments to go from 75 to 80. And we all know the problems that local, volunteer, and career fire departments are having with recruitment, retainment, and purchase of equipment, training, and so forth. And so, without me speaking any further, I'd like to have comments from some people here today that would like to make a comment.
All right. Thank you, Delegate Wright. Were there any amendments on the bill, Frank? No. Okay. Those who wish to speak in favor of the bill, if you would, Delegate Wright?
Yes.
Yes. Delegate Byron would like to have a question.
Yes,
Delegate Wright, how much of a difference does this bring going even from the 75 to the 80% going from the state fund back to local government, local firefighters?
okay. Well, what was the question again?
The part of the bill that increases it from 75% to 80 going back to localities versus staying here in Richmond, which I've always been supportive of. How much of a difference is that in monies going back?
How much more money would go back to the localities on your change of the 75% to 80%?
How much are they getting now?
It'd be 55%.
No, do you know how much that equates out to revenue wise? Does someone have that figure?
I think maybe we did. Can you help them out here?
I'll take a shot at it.
Throw them a lifeline. You're asking for more money, you should know how much you're getting.
Do you want the 1+1, or do you want?
I don't care, just tell me what you got.
Mr. Chairman, Ed Rhodes with the Virginia Fire Chiefs Association and also the Virginia Fire Prevention Association, and the answer to Delegate Byron's question, the proposed funding levels would increase the return to localities to 37 million from approximately 26 million.
So right now, they're getting $26 million.
Yes, sir, they're getting approximately 26 million with 9 million to the agency, and the proposed funding would be 37 million in return to the locality with an approximate $2 million increase to the agency.
Mr. Chairman, so is this the first time there's been a change to that I'm aware of since I've been down here, right?
It's the first time it's been changed in 22 years.
So that bit in itself would help quite a bit, I would imagine.
You're talking, now, I think we're talking past each other. Ed, what you just said, if we adopt this bill and raise it from 1 to 1.4%, then that would go from 26 million to 37 million, is that right?
Yes, sir, that's in the return to locality.
Okay, so what I think Delegate Byram is asking, by jumping it from 75% to 80%, that amount going back to localities, how much more does that put in localities' pockets?
That would be the 37 million.
So I think what she's asking, okay, so assuming, without the increase, Ed, without moving it from 1 to 1.4%, that's what she's asking. Without moving it from 1 to 1.4%, keeping it at 1, how much would 80, moving that from 75 to 80% going back, how much more money is that going back to localities? It looks to me like if it was 5%, it would be about a couple $1 million, is that right? This did that on the back of my envelope, but. That seemed about right?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have,
Yeah.
I don't have that number. I didn't do any, on the spreadsheet, I didn't do it, from
Okay.
numbers.
That's fine. All right, anybody, now you have the floor to speak. You were coming up to speak anyway, so.
I know the answers, I didn't get the right answer. I don't have those numbers. I don't know if anybody here from the department that could answer that either. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, as I just said, the last time this was increased, was in 1995 or 22 years ago. And if you, from between FY 2008 to FY 2017, the average increase in funds that were generated to the Department of Fire programs from the insurance industry was an average of 3.7% or an overall total of 38%. The cost of training firefighters has increased over these 22 years. Firefighter 1, Firefighter 2, and your basic and your main classes has increased by 214%. Other classes have increased by 163%, and there's really nothing less than 50% increase on any of the other classes. Cost of fire trucks has gone from approximately $300,000 to over $700,000. Personal protective gear has gone from about $1,500 to $7,000, and the breathing apparatus has increased also. Even though we're asking for 1.4%, we're also asking that 80% goes back to the localities who are in need. There was an article in the Northern Virginia Daily a few days ago stating in Shenandoah County that the county lacks any funding or lacks funding to send their firefighters to a training academy. It costs them roughly about $20,000 to cover sending people to those classes. These are necessary
Mr. Chairman. Maybe this is for you, Ed, or somebody else. But, Mr. Chairman, I assume insurance premiums have gone up as well over this period of time.
I'm sure they are.
So
You'd have to add one to insurance.
my question, Mr. Chairman, is, okay, I know your costs have gone up, but your monies have gone up. So can somebody tell me what that percentage is? It looks like Mr. Legault is nodding. If you want to wait till it comes up.
I'll wait till he comes up.
All right.
All right, anyone else is, Ed, I think there's a question here.
I have another question for you since you didn't come by and see me about this bill. I need to address it here in committee. Okay, so is it done by a formula? How do you figure out, Delia, right, that we're getting it back in some of our rural areas that I believe are a little bit more needier than some of the other areas in regards to funding and the stress on local government? So how is that formula done?
Formula is based on population. The minimum for,
Which means it goes up north?
your bigger localities,
Is
yes.
there a way to change the formula and bring some more of it to the south side? Then maybe I can feel a little better about it.
I'm sure there is, I don't know what it is, but I've heard that question before. The cities get X number of dollars, towns and counties get X number of dollars as a base, but the Board of Fire Programs, what's in the code in front of you, the board has the authority to raise those numbers. And they've increased them over the years.
All right, any other questions? All right, Nick, who else would like to speak in favor of the bill? Yes, sir.
Thank you. My name is Bruce Harris. I'm Fire Chief, Lieutenant of Cambridge, and I'm representing the Virginia State Firefighters Association here today, which is a statewide organization with a big 13,000 members. I can assure you that the fire departments in rural Virginia, particularly Dr. Kilgore, where you live, Southwest Virginia, and where I live, Southside Virginia, and probably other places, but a lot of fire departments are having fundraising events almost every weekend just to keep up with putting gas and fuel and things necessary that they got to have. Tornado gear, I just mentioned tornado gear. We just bought tornado gear in my department. It had been for a federal grant that we applied for. We were able to get that, which they are very hard to get. We were able to get that. We got some tornado gear. Without that, we would be operating with tornado gear that was 25 years old. Each set of tornado gear that we bought, and we put that on bid, was about a little over $5,000. That's just for the tornado gear. So, I mean, things are very, very expensive. The cost of operating the fire department, that their minimum is increasing so fast through inflation that, I mean, simple inflation we don't see on a day-to-day basis. But when you get into the fire service, you see it almost on a monthly basis.
Delegate Byron has a
And
question.
we're not keeping up. I'm
He has
sorry.
a question.
Do you feel like it's, I mean, you're in Southwest Virginia, so we know.
Southside.
South side, okay, so we still have less population in that area and we're struggling with the effects of that. So do you feel that it's fair and equitable, the way that the monies come back to the localities?
Well, it's probably fair and equitable for the simple reason it's done by population. However, if the minimums can be raised, and that can be done by the fire board, if they are raised, that would benefit the smaller departments much more than what they've been doing in the past. You got places in areas of Virginia getting well over $1 million a year, and my little department will get 10,000.
Do you think that the people that you serve in your communities, and we thank you for that service, that they can afford the increases that might be as a result of this? Or are you not concerned about that?
Delegate, right now, we're talking just a few minutes ago on $100,000 house. The increase we're talking about is a $4 increase.
A year?
Yes, sir. And the odd thing is, or not the odd thing, but I think the amazing thing is that we can, for every dollar we try to save the homeowner, we're also saving the insurance company as well. So that's
else to speak in favor? And those who want to speak against, if you can get ready.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, David Bailey speaking on behalf of Virginia State firefighters, predominantly volunteers and largely rural. And I hear the concerns that you're raising. I think Mr. Rhodes was right in your estimate too, Dr. Byron. It's on the current funds coming in, moving from 75 to 80 is about $2 million that would shift. But I understand that there may be someone here from the department if you need any more precise information, but the need is there, and we thank you very much for seriously considering the need.
Thank you. All right. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Pat Dent, Fire Chief with the City of Williamsburg. I'm here today representing the Virginia Fire Chiefs Association and over 700 members. I'm not going to reiterate all the cost increases that have gone along with the fire equipment over the years, and although I'm not in the insurance industry, I would venture to say that the increase in insurance costs have not kept up with the increase in cost of equipment in the fire service. One thing I do want to say on the insurance side is that with improved equipment and trained personnel, we are rated by the insurance industry, and that ISO rating, if it's reduced, could reduce the premiums for a locality instead of increasing premiums for that locality. So that's something important. Obviously, if we're a better qualified department, have better equipment, that could in turn save the citizens money.
Okay, thank you. Delegate Farrell, who did you want? Okay. All right, who's next? Opposition. Yes, that's fine.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Chris Legault for PCI, Property Casualty Insurance Association of America, Nationwide Insurance Hub, and AIG. This bill has been before you a number of times in the past, and I hope that the same result will occur today. The handout that I just gave you has some important figures on it. These are taken from the State Corporation Commission and from the fire program itself as to how much money actually is going to them over time. From the first chart that you see there in color on your handout is it really tells a good story. Since the last rate increase in '95, it was effective in '96, you see the chart there with a steady increase in the amount of revenues going to the fire fund program. In last year, based on 2015 premium volume, the fire program received $37,300,000 last year. If you increase that assessment rate to 1.4%, that's going to jump to over $52 million. So I would suggest that the numbers previously announced by Mr. Rhodes are not correct in that respect. An increase like that, none of you are going to increase taxes on people, and that's what this amounts to. It's no different than a tax increase because it's immediately passed through to every homeowner and every property owner in the state of Virginia. The next sheet down, or almost the next sheet down, shows you year by year the actual dollars down to the penny as to what the program has received. Going back to 1990, $7.8 million. And in 2016, like I said, they received the $37,300,000, and that will increase to $52,228,000 if we allow this to go through. These premiums, by the way, just so you know, the premiums that were paid last June are based on 2015 written premiums because they're not reportable until March of 2016 and then payable out to the fire fund program in June of 2016. So the average annual increase in funding going to the fire program from this assessment on insurance companies is 6.5% over the last 20 years. You have to ask yourself, how many state agencies have enjoyed a 6.5% annual average increase in revenues?
Colleges.
They may be the only
I just saw that this morning.
They may be the only one. I would urge the committee to pass this bill by or table it. I know that the fire department's needs are many, but they have other avenues for raising this money at the local level, the Appropriations Committee, Senate Finance Committees. So,
Thank you.
I'll be glad to answer any questions.
All right. If somebody could tell me, one of y'all who are supposed to, what the, if you raised it from one, how much, is it $4, is it $10, $30, what's the number?
No idea. That will depend on the property, it will depend on premiums. I really can't say exactly what that will be on a per person, per property basis.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Erin Collins from the National Association of Mutual Insurance Companies. Thanks for your time. We're the largest property and casualty insurance trade in the country, representing about 50% of the P&C market. We have in our membership both the largest insurance companies in the country as well as the very smallest. It's to that point I want to address my comments today, but first I would like to concur with everything that Mr. Legault said ahead of me. I would draw your attention to, in his talking points, that Virginia ranks already 12th among states for its tax burden on insurers. In the insurance world, there's the concept of retaliatory tax. So your insurance companies that are domiciled here in Virginia, when they choose to go to another state and write business in that state, they are subject to what's called a retaliatory tax. So if that, let's say, for example, it's Texas. If Texas has a lower premium tax rate than Virginia, that company domiciled here in Virginia is going to be charged the balance of that premium tax in order to write in Texas, in the vein that that's what a company based out of Texas would be charged coming to Virginia. So it does create a burden upon your domiciled companies here in Virginia, which are mostly small businesses. So I wanted to draw your attention to that as well. And like Mr. Lugo, we ask you to either table or pass this bill by.
Next.
I just had a question for the witness, witness. So you referenced Mr. Legault's talking points, which says Virginia ranks 12th among all states for its burden of insurers. But that is right after a sentence that says the effective overall burden is 3%. The tax rate, as you call it, a tax rate, the assessment is 1%. How do you, are you saying that, how do you come up with 3%?
There's a 2.25% premium tax. You add, these are all cumulative assessments, so the overall burden is roughly 3%. The premium tax that all companies pay across the board is 2.25% here in Virginia, which does rank us pretty high in the country. If you add this, various assessments, it gets to that 3%.
Further question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
What is the 2.25% assessment? What does that go toward?
It goes a lot of it goes towards transportation here in Virginia. That's where a lot of the premium tax goes to the state.
Is that assessed in the same way, or is that assessed?
It is assessed annually based on written premium by line of insurance being sold.
That's assessed
So
directly to the ratepayer?
To the insurance industry. The insurance companies pay it to the state of Virginia. That is built into the premiums that are subsequently charged to the ratepayer.
All of which are optionally passed through to the ratepayer based on the insurance company's decision.
I would assume that's right, but none of them are going to waive it, I'm sure.
But they don't have to pass it on to the ratepayer, correct?
Sure, they have to, but Prudence would suggest that they always would.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Jack.
Mr. Chairman, Jackie Stone, representing State Farm, and we join in opposition to this measure. Thank you.
Doug Farrell.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Is anybody from the department here? I'd like to ask them about the 75%, 80%.
Anybody from the department here? I think we got somebody here.
Whoever cares about where the 25% goes after the 75%, how about that?
Hi, I'm Erin Rice with the Department of Fire Programs. I'm assuming that's which.
Yes, that's the department.
Mr. Chair, if I may, so 75% after you do the two other programs I read about.
Yes.
75% of the remaining money goes to them in one way, shape, or form. What happens to the 25% after they get the 75?
The other 25% goes to run the Department of Fire program. So for our staffing, all of our training programs, all of the other expenses that it takes to put on firefighter training, that's where that money goes.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Well, I got these guys who are saying they would find it to be a better use if that 5% went to them directly. What do you say to that?
It's the will of the committee.
It's at the will of the committee?
Yeah.
My favorite answer from the administration.
Sorry.
Mr. Chair, if I may, speak into the bill.
Yes.
Because I see it's really two bills if you really think. It's two changes. And I imagine Mr. Legault probably doesn't really concern himself that much with the 75 or 80%. I will say, looking at the numbers, it's 500 or 600% increase since 1990. I mean, has been the increase in their funds, which is a lot. So I would say to the chiefs, I think you have two issues, and you may have different temperatures on each issue. You have an issue with your amount of money has grown a lot through the insurance premiums, whether it's kept up or not. Some raw numbers that I've heard actually show that it has. Now, however, if you still have some need, the 75%, 80%, I think is a different subject matter that at least I would be more willing to look at, because I'd rather, quite frankly, the money go directly to the chiefs in the departments that need to use it in the way they want without having to go through the step of the state. So I don't know, Ed or David, what your thought is on that, but votes are votes.
Mr. Chairman, David Bailey, Virginia State Firefighters, in answering the delegate's question, I think it would be very good if 100% of that went to the localities. And if the state employees were paid out of the general fund. But that's for another year. That's
Yeah.
perhaps for another year or another.
I don't think if I get that past a nice floor right now.
No, it's not for this year, but seriously, if that's special, the special fund, so I think that, in all due respect to the department and training they do, as much as possible that can go to localities, it's really needed at the localities.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. I think if it's all right, Frank, I'd love to make an amendment to get rid of the portion of the assessment, the insurance assessment going up, but leave the portion of the 75 to 80%. That would be my amendment to the bill.
I'd have an amendment to the bill that would take out and I don't know where that is, Frank, what
Page
line?
1, line 39, after amount of, you would unstrike the 1 and delete the 1.4. But return it to the 1%.
Correct. Yes, sir, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Delegate Wright.
Mr. Chairman, if I can make a couple of comments. First,
Sure.
I agree with Delegate Byron. I wish we could find a way to return a larger percentage of the revenue to the rural areas, including education. I think we all are concerned about that, and I would like to see a larger percentage of this money go to the rural areas. But that's really a consideration for another day. If we pass this and then work on get that percent increase, it'd be fine with me. I prefer the bill to pass as it was. I'll just say that the fire departments are in dire need, there's no question about that.
I agree with you.
We're losing numbers, we're losing some fire departments closing, and it's be a great strain on locality. Fire departments go down, but I'll accept the will of the committee.
All right, we have a motion to amend the bill. Anybody on the committee wish to speak to that motion? All right, have a motion. Are members prepared to vote? All those in favor of the amendment offered by Delegate Farrell, say aye. Opposed? No. Oh my goodness. All right, so all those, hit it too many times, okay. Just hit it one time. All right, clerk, we'll close the roll. House Bill,
I'm a yay.
vote yea. It passes 13-5. Thank you. And we'll try, and you know, that's something we need to work on, Delegate Wright, I voted with you on that, so we just need to continue to work on that. Maybe, you know, maybe next year you come back with 1.2 or 1.1 or something. We'll get there and try to move it forward, okay?
We'll accept this and thank you for your consideration.
All right, thank you. It's a long process. Thank you. Got, Doug Davis, then Delegate Moorfield. Got it, good. What's your bill number? The
1754, sir.
All right, 1754, that deals with security. You got your expert here with you, I see.
Yes, sir. So it looks like the nation has finally caught up with the Commonwealth of Virginia. You've heard me come in front of you on crowdfunding a couple of times. This past May, the federal government has put together their own crowdfunding national legislation. This legislation will bring us in line with that, allowing Virginians to utilize the national crowdfunding opportunities that exist. This just codifies where Virginians would need to register when they do file. Obviously, if their place of business is in the Commonwealth, they would file in the Commonwealth. Likewise, if purchasers of more than 50% of the securities sold is in Virginia, they would file with the State Corporation Commission here. This also limits the amount of the filing fee to $100, which is similar as what we've limited the amount of the filing fee in the other crowdfunding bills that you've seen the last couple of years.
You worked with the State Corporation Commission on this bill, Ron. Would you like to speak to it?
It's at the request.
Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Ron Thomas, Director of the State Corporation Commission's Division of Securities and Retail Franchising. The purpose of this bill is to let the commission know that a crowdfunding federally offered is transpiring in Congress.
All right. Any questions of either the commission or Delegate Davis? Committee operates on a motion. Motion, and have a second? Second. Any more discussion? Anybody else wish to be heard for or against House Bill 1754? All right, members prepared to vote by the electronic voting board. Hit it one time. It passes. All right, clerk, we'll close the roll. House Bill 1754, report 17-0. Thank you, Delegate Davis. Delegate Moorfield, then Delegate Anderson. All right, Delegate Moorfield, 1671, and there's an amendment. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, clerk, have the clerk report the amendment first, Delegate Moorfield.
The amendment is on page 1, line 26.
Okay.
At the end of the line, after qualifying projects, insert the phrase located in the coalfield region of Virginia as described in section 15.2, 6002.
Okay. So that amendment limits it to the coalfields, is that correct?
Yes, Mr.
As defined, so that would be the coalfield, as defined in the Coalfield Economic Development Authority, is that definition? All right, do we have a motion on that amendment? Doug, you go to the amendment? And the amendment, yeah, and Doug, that'll be seconds. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay, Delegate Moorfield, tell us what you're doing.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, as all of you know, all of the natural gas produced in Virginia is produced within the coal fields. And over the past 20 years, it's been extremely challenging, especially with the decrease in coal natural gas severance revenues, for us to expand our infrastructure, whether it be water or natural gas. And currently, the way that the statute is written, the State Corporation Commission would prohibit such economic
anybody in the commission have any problem with this legislation? Okay, thank you, Doug. They said no. All right, anybody else have any questions on this? Delegate O'Quinn, did you have a question? All right. You make a motion? I have a motion to report and a second. Any more discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to be heard for or against? All right, members prepared to vote on electronic voting board. Only once. All right. Yes. Clerk will close the roll. House Bill 1671, report to the amendment 17-0. Thank you, Doug Morfield. Douglas Anderson. Are you ready? Then Delegate Habib.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 1719 has to do with the wireless E911 fund and the way that percentages are calculated for distributing proceeds from that. What it does is it postpones from July 1st of 2017 this year to 1 year later, July 1st of 2018, the date on which the Department of Taxation does their calculation, and it's their first recalculation of percentage of funds in the wireless E911 fund that goes to each public safety answering point, which is a fancy name for each call center in the localities where there are physical people present and taking these 911 calls. And it's based on the amount of workload and number of transactions that are done for each locality. This was added in 2012 based on what I'm aware of, and it allows funding to be adjusted for those localities that are fast growing and therefore have a greater number of calls in those centers. So what they want to do, the Virginia 911 Services Board, which falls under VITA, wants to delay this by 1 year to 2018 to allow the board to discuss broader changes to the 911 funding methodology so that they can support next generation 911. And by next generation, that's where they're transitioning from mechanical trunk systems to VoIP-based, internet-based systems.
So this is, you worked with the agency on this?
Yes, with VITA. And I just had a conversation with the VACO representatives that are in the room.
I see them in the back.
Okay, and they're available to answer questions. So is Steve Martzoff, who's the program director for VITA. But they have some concerns which have not yet been settled. They are working with Prince William County, my home county, in order to make a determination of the fiscal impact.
Do y'all, you need to address the committee on that, Dean? Yes, sir. Come on forward.
Dean Lynch with the Virginia Association of Counties. We haven't been able to do all the research on this and the impact that this may have on real localities, but if you look at the fiscal impact statement, I think on the second page, it talks about that it could have a potential impact up to 70% of revenues for rural localities. That is a concern to the rural PSAPs. So we're doing some research.
Did you say 70%?
Up to 70% of their revenue. So I'm working with.
I think I represent a rural county. No, I do. All right.
Chairman Ron Jordan, representing the city of Chesapeake, Prince William County, and the city of Richmond. We've got responses from two of the three who would this delay in the recalculation would cost Chesapeake an additional $600,000 that it expected to get. City of Richmond 1.7 million, and we're still waiting the numbers from Prince William County. It's a workload, in effect, it's essentially a workload-driven formula. It's throughput through the PSAP is what drives the recalculation. So the money actually is going to shift to the busier PSAPs under this. And the bigger concern for us, beside just the loss in anticipated money, is from what we understand, there's a delay of 1 year. What happens next year? Do we come back and delay it again, delay it again, delay it again?
So, Ron, let me ask you, so with this, so between now and next year, are you saying that the rural county
Chairman, I'm always honest with you. And so if by the delay, the money stays in the rural localities, if you don't adopt the delay, the money is reallocated, some of the money is reallocated from the rural localities to the larger localities.
For the delay.
As I said, I'm always gonna be straight with you.
All right, thank you. Yes, sir.
I'm Steve Marzok, I'm the person that actually does the calculation for the 911 board. So I can tell you that it's really a question of redistribution of the pie. There's 60% of the wireless 911 fund is distributed to localities based on formula by Department of Taxation. The code requires a recalculation of that. And Ron is exactly right. The money right now with the formula, the way the board has historically calculated workload, there would be this large shift. What the board did at their meeting just last week, is created a committee, which we will be inviting VML and VACO to both have a seat on a 5-person committee to come up and look at that formula. They can, within the code, look at a different formula. I will tell you, they've done this about 6 times in the past, and it is an extremely contentious issue because whenever you have a winner, money goes up for a locality, you're going to have losers, and money goes down for localities. So they are, the committee is planned to come back to the board in June with a recommendation, or I'm sorry, the July meeting. The board just needs more time to make sure we understand the impact and to have those localities be able to plan for the impact. Because the workload is shifting. It is growing much greater in the larger jurisdictions than the small. But we want to make sure that we have time to plan.
But this year they're going to be getting the same money.
Correct. The formula was set based on the historical, what they received for the last 5 years. This is the first time. We did not expect this big of a shift. When we ran the numbers and saw how large it was, the board decided that we needed time to revisit.
The loss is only on paper.
The loss is only on paper at this time, unless this code section doesn't change, then we will have to implement something.
Right.
We don't know what that something is yet. If we do the historical formula, it will be devastating to small localities. The board is committed to coming up with something better.
Delegate Lindsay.
He's just answering my question.
All right, thank you. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Bob Mathias, Virginia Beach. As you've heard, there's winners and losers. The larger localities like Virginia Beach would be a winner and probably in excess of $1 million a year.
All right. But if we vote for this bill, it keeps everything the way it is right now, and then you all are going to come up with you're going to meet with all these great gentlemen here, ladies, and whoever needs to meet with you and try to work it out. And let everybody down easy.
The 911 board is 16 representatives, 8 are from local government. There's a fire chief, police chief, sheriff, including from Southwest Virginia. We have the police chief from Galax as a member of the board, as is the 911 center from Center Manager.
Okay.
So we do take into account the entire cross-section of Commonwealth, which is why the board needed more time to wrestle with this contentious issue.
All right. Anybody else wish to speak? Delegate Abebe, you want to speak on it? All right. Members, what's your,
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if my button's working.
no, it's not.
Can I ask a quick question?
It is now.
I just
Yes.
want to make sure that we're not hurting rural parts of Virginia.
From what
And I know you asked that question several times.
What I understand, everything stays the same if we postpone this. If we vote for Delegate Anderson's bill, everything stays the same while they go back and recalculate.
Okay.
All right, anybody else wish to speak? All right, I'll bring on a motion. Now, a motion to report and a second. Members wishing to vote by electronic voting board. Clerk, close the roll. House Bill 1719 reports 19-0. We expect y'all, Delegate Anderson, I'm going to put you in charge of making sure these folks get together between now and next year and get this worked out.
Will do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And it's Scott Lee and Wise that I represent. All right. Next, we have Delegate Habib. We get a lot of,
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
a lot of emails.
Yeah, this is House Bill 1766. A couple times every session, some group totally misunderstands what a bill is, and you get emails as a result of that. Delegate Byron understands that feeling. So let me tell you what, I'm going to spend a little more time than maybe normal just on the history of this bill. I'll try to go really fast. It's actually ultimately a very innocuous bill. Prior to 2012, if you have the bill in front of you, section A1 under 56265.2 was the code that existed before 2012, and it set the procedures for the expansion or building out of transmission lines. In 2012, the General Assembly unanimously passed what is now section 2, related to the construction of 138 kilovolt lines. These 138 lines are sort of backbone distribution lines, and they oftentimes cross over jurisdictional lines. So before 2012, there was no role for local governments, no role for localities. It was purely an SCC application to get approval for one of these lines. In 2012, what this committee and the full General Assembly did unanimously was said for these 138 lines, you can either go to the SCC for approval or go to the local governing bodies through their zoning process. That makes sense because some are solely single jurisdiction, some are multi-jurisdiction. If you go to the State Corporation Commission, the localities are deemed interested parties for purpose of the SCC proceedings, and they still get their say, and they all get equal say in the SCC process. And so that's been the process that's been in place since 2012. It worked for a few years, it was applied for a few years. We're then all aware there was some litigation that came up with the Supreme Court very strictly interpreted the phrase transmission lines and said it only, because we said the word lines, we mean literally the lines. We only mean the wires. We don't mean anything else. Because Virginia doesn't use statutory history and legislative history when interpreting statutes, the Supreme Court's left with the words. Now everybody involved who voted for the bill in 2012 understands we mean the implementation of 138 projects. And so the only thing this bill does is clarifies that it means the associated facilities and the 138 transmission lines, which puts us back where we thought we all were in 2012, which is the State Corporation Commission has oversight, or the local zoning based on the application process. And in the State Corporation Commission process, all the localities have equal say. Again, that's important because if you have 138 line crossing multiple jurisdictions, you can have one jurisdiction who holds up the project based on their zoning rather than taking a line of macro level evaluation of the project. Totally innocuous bill, but because of the litigation that existed with Dominion, some folks misinterpreted this bill to be a Dominion issue. It's not a Dominion bill because Dominion doesn't really have 138 lines. It's a very, very small part of Dominion's infrastructure. Those of us in Western Virginia, especially, this is actually a very big deal for a lot of us because we do have a lot more of the 138 lines. So a couple of the questions that people ask, why were 138 lines singled out? Well, again, they've always been singled out. It goes way back. This isn't opening the door to higher voltage lines. There's some concern that the 500 kV lines that maybe are in James City or somewhere else. This has nothing to do with that. Doesn't touch that. We've never carved those lines out. At any point, someone is welcome to put a bill in that does whatever they want. The passage of this bill doesn't affect any other higher voltage lines. There's also questions about why we did this 138 in the first place. Again, that's because these are distribution lines oftentimes crossing multiple jurisdictions. And again, this really isn't a Dominion issue. Frankly, it's largely will affect the implementation of 138 in the Appalachian Power area. The emails that you've all gotten, I haven't really seen lay out a case to oppose the bill, an environmental case or a public policy case. It's just been that people were suspicious that there was something else at play. I'm very sensitive and aware of that, especially when there's been litigation that is just wrapped up. All I can tell you is that we all voted for this policy in 2012, you in the General Assembly. If you don't think that the 138 kV lines should go through the SCC, if you've changed your mind from 2012 and don't think that that's the right public policy, then you'd want to vote against this tweak. But if you still believe what you believed in 2012, which was the unanimous will of the General Assembly, that these 138 distribution lines should have this two options, State Corporation Commission where the localities are a party, or local zoning, then you vote for the bill to implement what we did in 2012. Really not any more complicated than that, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Anybody in the audience wish to speak in favor of the bill?
Mr. Chairman, Ron Jefferson, Appalachian Power Company. I'll only add 2 points. Since 2012, we have constructed a number of 138 projects using the process that Delegate Habib described to you, taking the project to the commission, and the commission working directly with the localities. One in Henry County is dealing with their mega site, and we're already working to try to, and the goal there is to reduce the timeline for when we get a prospect that wants to locate at that facility, to reduce the timeline of getting power to that site. So it's working really well for us.
All right, anyone else wishes to speak in favor?
Chairman, members of the committee, Ryan Dunn with the Virginia Chamber of Commerce. We supported the 2012 legislation. Energy dependability is important for Virginia's economic competitiveness, but also Virginia needs a responsive, reliable, and dependable system set up, an approval process for electric transmission lines. We hope you'll pass the bill, simply clarifying an approval process that embraces both the lines and the necessary facilities all into one. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, John Wells, Dominion. This is not our bill, and I do not intend to speak in favor or against. Simply wanted to clarify that Dominion has very few 138 lines, most of which interconnect with Appalachian Power. We are building no new 138 lines, and so this bill does not affect us at all, and I want to make sure everybody understood that.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Mr. Jefferson hit on something that's really important from an economic development standpoint.
That Thomas Jefferson or Ron? Okay, Ron.
Ron's stepfather, Thomas.
Yeah.
So the reason that the change was made in 2012 that was so important was because when you have a site-specific project like the Henry County mega project or something else, we actually are pushing the decision to the local level so that the power companies can work with the local economic development folks and local government to deploy the 138 line quicker. The problem if we undercut this is we're going to end up back in a system where everything is forced to the State Corporation Commission, which will get in the way of these mega sites, because if we have someone wanting to go and we can't get power to them on a quick basis, they're just going to go across state lines where they can. And so this isn't just about somehow helping the power companies, it's actually helping them work with the localities to deploy these 138 lines.
All right. Anybody to speak in opposition to House Bill 1766? All right. Do I have a motion on the bill?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Could I just, I'm fine with the bill, I just wanted to ask a couple of questions just so I can understand how the process works. And also, yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you. And also just to clarify, because I did, I'm sure everybody here has received a lot of questions, and it does seem like the questions, or the emails were based on some possible inaccuracies in understanding how it works. So first question to the patron. Under the new process since 2012, is it the applicant that decides whether he or she, if that organization goes to the SEC or to the local government?
Yes.
Okay. And in the current system as it is, when the applicant goes before either SEC or the local governments, currently are both the lines and all the substations and all the affiliated facilities considered together at this current law?
Yeah, so between 2012 and the Supreme Court decision of 2015, the answer is yes, they were done concurrently. And as you heard from Appalachian Power, they had several projects they did that way. When the Supreme Court said no, they said transmission lines, not associated facilities. From that point forward, what you would have to do is go to the State Corporation Commission for line approval, go through that whole expensive process, get approval, and then go to every jurisdiction to get a zoning carve-out for every piece of non-line related equipment.
Sure. One more question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
And whether the applicant chooses the SEC process or the local government process, you mentioned that in your presentation that the SEC already includes as an interested party local governments. So is there a chance, or I mean there's always a chance, but is there a probability that an outcome could possibly be different by going and choosing one place or another, especially in light of the division between the substation and the line? In other words, if the SEC were to approve the line, is there a chance that by not having the SEC consider the substation, that part gets...
Yes, you could go through the very expensive SEC process, and you could have every jurisdiction on board with a multi-jurisdiction line, and then have someone who has a very small role in the line decide they're not willing to give a zoning variance or whatever's necessary, and you could end up with a conflicting result that could block an economic development project.
Mr. Chairman, sorry, I said last question, but one last question, just
okay. Final last question.
Final last question. And so, I guess the bottom line is that, if I remember, because I was here in 2012, not in this committee, but I don't believe that this bill was drafted at that point to try to stop abusive forum shopping or anything like that. It was just purely for logistical convenience purposes. It wasn't to say, let's try to get different outcomes with different
Yeah, it was
applications.
totally opposite of that. It was saying if we have these jurisdiction-specific projects, rather than go through the expensive statewide SEC proposal like the Henry County project, let's allow another avenue to do that while keeping in place the SEC's holistic approval of a project that's more appropriately situated at the SEC. Them being an interested party is important because if you leave it up to each of their zoning, then they each have unilateral jurisdictional veto. When you have interested party standing, they all have equal ability to apply whatever influence and facts to the SEC they can provide.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for the patron for
Delegate.
clarifying.
Delegate Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Delegate Habib, is the part of the response to Delegate King that you just added at the end the only reason that anyone or any entity might oppose the bill?
So I'm honestly not aware of anybody who opposes the bill other than the form emails you got, which I think are probably people either directly or indirectly affected by the litigation with Dominion who think this bill is a trick. And I understand their cynicism, and they ought to look at bills like this very closely to make sure it is not a trick. If it is a trick, then I have been tricked as well, because I can't find how it would affect the issue they're worried about at all. I think what they're worried about is this is somehow a backdoor play to take local involvement out of bigger deployment projects, but that wasn't the goal in 2012, it wasn't the goal before that, and it's not today. And I think if anybody were to file that bill, you would see even more than the 500 emails you got this week. I think you would hear about it.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, and I think I'll be tricked with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Delegate, with all that's been said and going back and forth, I think when you boil it right down, am I correct in understanding that really what this bill is about is guaranteeing consistency, predictability, reliability, and stability for electric power in the western part of the state for residents, for commercial, for industrial capacity, and economic development and growth?
Yes.
Delegate Lindsay. Lindsay.
I was looking at you going, that doesn't sound
And this is the lawyer in me, so I apologize in advance, but might not our vote today signal something in the way of opening a floodgate in terms of not just limiting to Appalachian Power or some local utility, but more so the Dominion?
Yeah, so I would say that the unanimous 2012 vote was the vote that if there was a floodgate to open, would have opened it. And you've not seen anybody file a bill since then to go beyond the 138 kilovolt. All this bill is doing is implementing what the General Assembly intended in 2012. So I understand that concern. That's always a legitimate question to ask. We have, again, Dominion had an issue that went directly to this. If there was a floodgate to open, they would have come in after 2012, changed it, and gone around the Supreme Court to do that. And that's not what they did. And so I don't think there's any reason to expect that there's something going to do.
Mr. Chairman, just one follow-up question. But with our vote today, if we in fact vote to pass this bill, then it also produce a different cause of action in which that very measure can be explored by, let's say, Dominion?
So the cause of action, the reason this came up before was because after 2012, people started using this process. So when this came up and somebody else filed litigation, they had to have the statute interpreted. We are now clarifying and really taking away the possibility of litigation. This really forecloses ever litigating these issues again. Now, someone could want to legislate this issue again in the future, where they came in and said, well, for a different reason, we want to do for 500 kV what we did for 138. But the legislative process will deal with that. We're already equipped to deal with that no matter what we do here. This actually takes away the risk of litigation related to the 138 kV lines.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Bauer.
Move to report.
Have a motion to report in a second. Any more discussion? Anybody else? All right. Members wishing to vote on electronic voting board. One time. One time.
1766 passes 18-1.
One abstention, Mr. Chairman.
And one abstention.
Thank you.
Delegate Ware had a couple bills on, but 1422, I think he had a witness here that could not make it back from, not make it to the next meeting. And I think the James going to handle that for him. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, it should be a lot easier than Delegate Beeb's bill.
Don't say that. Oh, that's bad luck. Go ahead.
Yes, so this bill, 1422, I'm representing the Virginia Association of Mutual Insurance Companies. And this bill seeks to protect Virginia consumers against storm scammers who often come in the state across state lines. They're often unlicensed contractors, and they offer to do very quick, very expensive storm repair work, usually roofing work, before an insurance adjuster has had time to come in and assess the damage. And they do this, and they often offer to rebate your insurance to be paid instead of waiting for that process to take place. So this bill has been passed in a similar form in 20 other states in the recent years, so we don't have any opposition to it. I also represent the Associate General Contractors, who are very supportive of this bill. And like you said, we do have a witness, Mr. Johnson from the BAMIC companies who speak.
Mr. Chairman, David Johnson, I'm the current sitting president of the BAMIC Association, which is the 13 small property casualty insurance companies that are domiciled here in the state of Virginia and only represent the people of the Commonwealth. We are in support of this, and we're looking to protect our policyholders who are actually our owners. So thank you for your consideration.
Yeah, I think there's a substitute that Delegate Byron's going to move to adopt that Delegate Ware asked for. We probably need to get that in front of us. Ms.
Chairman, I move the substitute.
Page. All right. I should have a second on the motion. Have a second to adopt the substitute. Second. All those in favor of adopting the substitute, give it before, say aye. Opposed, that substitute is before.
Mr. Chairman, the changes from the introduced bill are on printed bills, page 3, subdivision 55. The language that after roofing-related services, striking the phrase in the original bill that said if the value of the roofing-related services is less than $1,000, and we're inserting language that in the substitute is on line 153, where it states that a customer who enters into a contract for roofing-related services has the right to rescind the contract within 3 business days. That language, the sentence from lines 153 to 156. Those are the 2 changes. It was removing language from the printed bill that limited it to $1,000. The value is less than $1,000.
Okay. All right. We have the substitute before us, and does that change your? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Erin Collins again with the National Association of Mutual Insurance Companies. We've developed this bill with BAMIC, and I'm happy to have it before you. As Ms. Payne mentioned, this is an initiative across the country and a consumer protection measure. In case you're wondering why this is a little bit different from the measure that has passed in other states known as the in-coil model, Virginia already has a robust statute addressing contractors, many other states do not. So this is the patch that will fully integrate those 2 subjects. I just wanted to clarify that for you, and we urge your passage. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Oh, you already. Anybody else? Anybody in the audience wishing to be heard for or against House Bill 1422? substitute. All right, have a motion to approve. Oh, Delegate Habib.
Yeah. I guess it's a basic question, I maybe wasn't paying close attention, so we see a lot of, sometimes these bills come here, sometimes they go to courts, and we've sort of over the years sort of jealously protected against the expansion of the Consumer Protection Act too aggressively, because the remedies are sort of unique in Virginia law contained in this one statute. And it's always a fraud-based situation where someone commits fraud in consumer transactions, so we give them some. So what's the issue here if you promise to pay but you don't actually do it? Or if you say you'll do it and then you actually do it, doesn't really seem like a fraudulent inducement of any kind. So what's the discrete behavior that we're trying to prevent?
The fraud is that these out-of-state contractors, unlicensed contractors, come in and they say, if you sign this contract, we'll do this roofing work and we will rebate your insurance. Before the insurance company has been able to come in and assess the damage and see if it's covered. They don't have the authority to say that, they don't know if they'll be able to rebate it. And a consumer signs the contract believing what they've said, that they will be able to rebate the contract, the insurance. Yes.
In addition to that, there are several folks here that could give you some examples, but around the country, we've seen instances where in fact damage is not present. So some of these unscrupulous folks will come into areas after a storm and prey on citizens and say, let me take a look at your roof for you after this storm. And in fact, there has been no damage to the roof.
So, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I mean, I would say that's already covered by the misrepresentation of the benefit of a good or service under Section 5 of the Consumer Protection Act. So if you come in right now and say, you need your roof fixed, and I'm going to fix it, and you bill somebody for it, and they didn't actually need it, you have an existing cause of action. And I understand the situation where somebody says, if you let us do this, we'll refund this money, and they never intended to do it, and they just disappear, or something like that. I get that. But, I can see someone in good faith saying, hey, if you have costs above and beyond what the insurance company will pay, we'll cover it for you, and actually fulfill that obligation, but then would be violating the Virginia Consumer Protection Act, which seems like a pretty significant remedy, where there's literally not any harm at that point. The Virginia Consumer Protection Act sort of assumes the harm. So, that just seems confusing to me.
Okay. All right, well, if the, I'm not sure how the committee's leaning, but I'm not going to, yes.
Two questions. First of all,
We only get one. Go ahead.
I'm gonna borrow one from my neighborhood. So, what is the penalty? And how do you catch these guys?
Is that both your questions?
That's both
Okay.
So the penalty under the Consumer Protection Act is a $2,500 fine, and there can be additional fines for the prosecution of the fraud. Currently, in talking with DCOR, if you have one of these folks, if someone calls in and says they've been scammed in this way, the only remedy is to go to the Commonwealth's attorney. And I think it just doesn't happen in a lot of cases, and there's not a sufficient way to deal with this problem, which is why we've added it here under the Consumer Protection Act.
All right. Anybody have any other issues with the bill? Now, if Chairman Ware is still in trouble, we probably need to put it off to when he can get here. So I'm trying to get a feel for the committee, how you feel about it. We'll take it by, but I don't think y'all would have to come back and testify. I think it's just more of a Beeb needs to talk to Ware deal. Okay? And Klein. Okay. All right, the other one that supposedly there was a piece in the Valley on is 1450. That's the pharmacy bill. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Hunter Jamerson for Epic Pharmacies.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, there is a substitute to this bill.
All right, motion to adopt the substitute.
Second.
All right, all those in favor of adopting the substitute, say aye. Opposed? Okay. All right, substitute before us. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, the purpose of House Bill 1450 is to clarify the existing any willing provider statute for pharmacists. The any willing provider statute requires health plans and insurers to offer a pharmacy provider a contract when the pharmacy Pharmacy requests the contract and is willing to accept the payer's terms and conditions. Epic Pharmacies asked Delegate Ware to introduce this bill. Epic is an intermediary for many of the independent pharmacies in the Commonwealth. Independent pharmacies rely on intermediaries such as Epic to submit claims on their behalf, and they collect payments from health plans and insurers. Epic Pharmacies also rely on intermediaries to request contracts from health plans and insurers pursuant to this any willing provider law. This bill clarifies that an intermediary such as Epic may request a pharmacy provider contract on behalf of a pharmacy which is willing to accept these terms and conditions. The present law requires individual pharmacies each to independently contact the payer and request the same contract. Epic House Bill 1450 requires that the health plans and insurers in turn offer the contract to either the intermediary or to the independent pharmacy. Epic's consulted with the relevant health plans and insurers regarding House Bill 1450. We've received a number of amendments which are reflected in your substitute. I believe we've addressed all existing concerns from the processing industry and hope that you will move to report the bill.
And is this one where all the stakeholders have come together and worked on this bill?
That is my understanding.
Everybody's fine?
Yes, sir.
Anybody else in the audience who's not fine with this bill? All right. Any questions, any members? All right. Do we have a motion on the bill? Have a motion on the bill? Have a motion and a second. Members wishing to vote by electronic voting board. Only one time. Clerk will close the roll. House Bill 1450 reports 19-0. Now we're going to take up 1760. All right.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, House Bill 1760.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention to House Bill 1760. Southwest Virginia has been in an economic downslide lately as far as it relates to coal and other just been facing some bad times there, and some of our school divisions had to lay off teachers and everything. So we're thinking of a way that we can get some investments back in our community, and this is what 1760 is about. Ladies and gentlemen, House Bill 1760 would authorize one or more pumped hydroelectricity and storage facility to be located in the Coalfield region of the Commonwealth, and would also deem the power station in the public interest. It would be pursued by one of our investor-owned incumbent utilities, and it would not be required to be in their service territory. What the plan is here is to use either solar or wind for this pump storage facility, which would be renewables in the coal fields of Southwest Virginia. It would also bring almost 2,500 construction jobs at one of these facilities, and permanent jobs as well as a permanent tax base. It is we are going to ask, and I think all the counties have agreed in the Coalfield regions, to revenue share. Any taxes that come from this will be shared, would not be just gained by one party, but would be gained by all parties in the Coalfield region, which is defined in 15.2 in the Coalfield Economic Development Authority. These are big operations. This would not be as big as the operation at Bath County, but would be similar to the Bath County. Those of y'all who have been and toured the Bath County, which is an amazing station there, but this would allow us to have some investment in our region, have some investment in renewable energy in our region, and it would allow one of our incumbents to have a peaking time generator that can quickly put this type of electricity on the grid and help balance energy from renewals, and this would help an incumbent said on all the above, Madam Chairwoman, and this, which, help us, help Southwest Virginia move to the next stage.
We have a question for you, Delegate Marshall.
Yes.
So Smith Mountain Lake is a pump storage.
What?
Smith Mountain Lake is a pump
That's
storage
correct.
facility, so we've been there 50 years. So these would be abandoned coal mines?
Yeah, well, there has been talk about using, and this is one of the opportunities you have, is use some abandoned underground coal mines where the water, there's all kinds of water under these mines. They would use that water to pump back up through the facility. And then also there'd be the opportunity, that you'd have to have solar or wind as far as energy making device. So yes, it would be an opportunity for us to use some of those underground coal mines that are not being used now.
And so I assume this could be multiple, not just one, it could be multiple.
It could be, yeah, it could be 2 or 3. As many as they want to build, we'll be happy. I think there's some folks that speak in favor.
We have anyone that wants to speak in support of this bill?
I have Senator Chapin and Delegate Hilliard who traveled with me to Bath County when it was 9 degrees and right before Christmas to look and look at their plant there. So,
do you have any words you'd like to share with us, gentlemen?
I think Senator Chapin has the bill considered.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just say, if you have a green button, use it.
Only once, though. Only once.
We think this is part of what we need in Southwest Virginia. Quite honestly, like Delegate Kilgore said, we've lost a lot of investments, and we are trying to restore them.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Senator Billy, Madam Chair, I know it's the Dominion. This is not a Dominion bill I wanted to request it, but we do support House Bill 1760. As you know from our experience in Bath, we know something about these types of facilities. They stabilize the grid. They act like a great big battery. They store energy for when you need it, and we think it would be something that's worth exploring. If it does get built, it'd be an economic driver for the region. We're definitely interested in looking at this if this bill passes, and we would certainly look at the feasibility of building one more of these facilities.
Donnie Ratliff with Contura Energy, Madam Chair. The coal companies support this bill. We think it's a great opportunity for the citizens of Southwest Virginia, and we too believe in all the above. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone here to speak in opposition to the bill?
Madam Chair, I'm not here to speak in opposition to the bill. It's just to highlight one section. We have consistently, since 2007, Brett Bassey with the Virginia Manufacturers Association. We have consistently, since the re-reg of electric utilities in 2007, pointed out when any bill states what the SEC should consider is in the public interest. This bill does contain that clause. It is concerning to us. That's the only part of this bill that is concerning, is tying the hands of the SEC as to stating what is in the public interest without the cost-benefit analysis of the SEC's evaluation. That's the only thing that we have a concern with. We've shared it with the patron. We just want to bring it to your attention today. We do think the underlying bill is a good bill.
Yeah, and just to address that issue, I think this is one of those projects that really needs to be deemed in the public interest so that we can see that it goes. We're hurting down there, and we're going to be spending money down there, taxpayer money, on other islands. And I think this is, if we can get, Dominion or Appalachian Power, they're not going to build it if they don't need it. If they don't need the power for the peak times, they're not going to build this. So I think that this is something that we need to kickstart by deeming it in the public interest. They still got to go to the State Corporation Commission, still got to file. They got to file. The only thing the public interest think they have to look at Title 56 liberally when they apply. So I think it is necessary, and I hope that
discussions, no speakers.
Second.
We have a motion to report that's been seconded. Further discussion? Everyone ready to vote? Everyone done voting? The roll's closed on 19 to 0.
That's it. I think that's it for today. I think that's it for today. One more bill.
Meeting's adjourned.
One more bill? 1542. Oh, my bill's, will be, next Tuesday.
House Bill 1542 will be next Tuesday's committee.
Okay, thank you.